is home right now, so I'm like, geez. Honey.
Hey.
Hey, honey.
Hey, you watch your mouth, Maj. You don't call her honey.
Yeah, what are you doing? You hitting on my wife right here live?
Don't you dare call her honey. That's my honey.
Oh my God, Ted, what are we doing about this? Can you hit an eject button or something? Come on.
SEO Fight Club HR, please. HR.
Honestly, I don't think honey needs defending.
Probably not. Yeah, you got a point there.
All right, welcome everyone to another episode of SEO Fight Club. A few things. I don't have our sponsor's pricing on because he had a pricing change. So Madge, can you tell us a bit about your new pricing?
No, pricing is the same. It's just the distribution is different in silver and gold. That's the only difference, right?
Oh, okay. So the features within the packages shifted. Okay. So I'll update the slides. Just note to go to Magic PR and check out the differences. So there are some differences in the packages. So go take a look. And if you have questions, reach out to Madge. He's really good about talking to you about what you need. Even if you don't buy, but you're just curious how it works and all of that, just reach out and talk to him. You know, start with a discussion, do your fact-finding mission, and he'll give you advice on how to solve the problem. So be sure to tell him the problem you're having, and then he'll be able to steer you as to what things that press releases can do and how to set them up and which package and discussions, question and answer sessions. They're free, right, Madge?
Yes, they are.
So just reach out and talk to them, and it costs you nothing to learn what it can do for you, what it's going to take, what it's going to cost, how long it'll take. Get all the answers, and then you can think about your strategy more, knowing all that detail. All right. So with that, Lee, it's one day until your next training class starts. So this is like the absolute last chance. If you want to get in on Lee's training this year, you need to talk to Lee today, because otherwise you don't get another chance until spring of next year. Is that correct?
Yeah, it'll be February or March timeframe will be the next one, and we've already started in the group. The official training hasn't started, but we have some free training now this time. So some people are already jumping into that and doing some little technical indexation audits on their site to make sure that there's the parking brake's not on before we hit the gas. So having some good feedback on that, and it looks like it's going to be a fun and interesting group this time.
And how would you describe this current group? I know each time you run the class, it's like a different mix of like SEO personalities. What is this current group like?
Well, you have a mix of people who've done it before. They come in and they're sort of the old veterans that can share some of the wisdom, their own wisdom, and some various ways that they implement what we talk about. But this new group is it seems to be very sort of curious, almost tester oriented. They will try different things, and they've got some interesting backgrounds, so it should be a very fun mingling of old and new and lots of different methodologies. So I'm excited to see what I pick up out of this group as well.
Excellent. And for anyone who doesn't know, Lee's training is different than most SEO courses in that it's a real-time, the rubber meets the road type of training, where every week you get a lesson for like 8 weeks, And then you get homework and you apply that homework to a website you're trying to rank. And then at the next class, everybody comes back and talks about the results they got. And so it's all about, did you do the homework and what happened to your rankings? And week after week, we do that. And when I took the course, I started with a brand new website. And by week 5, I had gotten that website to #1 on Bing and #1 on Google using Lee's methodology. I didn't even complete the course. And so it's really a rubber meets the road type of thing. It's pretty remarkable. It is kind of Quora heavy. So if you hate Quora, it might not be for you.
I'll make you love Quora. I'll make you love Quora, you know.
But yeah, you know, it's a remarkable course. I've never had or seen an SEO course quite like it. It's really cool how you take people through all of the research that you've done, including the research you don't share otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
And so you show people these measurements and behaviors of what Google is doing and the implications it has on what you need to do to your page. And it's really remarkable. So that's out there. You know, it's for SEOs that probably already have a roster and they know how they're going to get the money back out of the investment. So that's kind of where you want to be if you take this class. But it's really good. I've never seen its equal.
Thank you. You know, it's an interesting one because it's also even more so this time. It's even more interactive than it has been. So it's not just me sitting there, lecturing endlessly. It's a group dynamic around the topics there, and because you have people that have been through it before and people of different backgrounds and experiences, you'll learn lots of different ways of implementing what we show. So there's not just one way. There's if you look at, if Ted did a page, I did a page, Honey did a page, Terry did a page, they would all rank, but they would all look differently, both in their on-page and their off-page profiles.
Yep. And there's definitely more than one way to rank a page. And this class shows you a lot of different levers you can pull. All right. So with that, I guess we'll get into things. Let's see, there was where is it? I am pulling up on a different browser, search engine roundtable, because there's a couple things recently that I thought were interesting. So one of which is Google says there is no way to prevent search traffic loss from a website revamp. And I fundamentally disagree with that. I think there is a perfectly reasonable way to avoid traffic loss from a website revamp. And the way you do that is you get super strict about the URLs. So you need to not change a single character in any of your URLs, and you will not have the calamitous chaos that a website redesign typically causes. So if you can say, hey, we're going to change the look and feel, and that'll have a little bit of shakeup. We're going to keep the content the same, even though the boilerplate changed, and we're going to be super strict about the URLs and not change a single letter in the URLs. You can minimize the traffic loss. You can minimize the pain. And so I totally disagree with that sentiment. What do you think, Lee?
Well, let's start with definition. What would you consider a website revamp? We just changing sort of the look and feel, but we're leaving the information untouched.
I think in general, you have brand changes where people take out the domain, and then in that case, you're hosed because you are literally changing the URL. So I think in the sense that you can minimize it, I think what we're talking about is a look and feel update, which is what online retailers want to do every 2 years.
Well, in that particular case, now, I don't know how it works in some of the like Shopify and some of those things, but something as simple as changing a WordPress theme can also change your SEO, because a lot of those themes have things baked into them, where they'll embed, automatically a schema, for example, or they will do open graph automatically for you or not. And so a lot of times when you're just changing a theme and you're thinking, oh, I like the way this one looks, you might be changing significant amounts of the underlying code positively or negatively and not even realize it. So in that particular case, your URLs are unchanged, but you might have just done a site-wide, SEO update and not realize it.
Totally agree. It is always possible to impact your rankings, changing look and feel. But if you want to minimize that impact, there are strategies that can help you minimize that impact. It's not to say that there will be no difference, but minimal difference. And so there are best practices you can do to mitigate the risk and to minimize the chaos. And so the fact that they definitively came out and said there is no way to prevent any of that, that I disagree.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with but it's you have to define the circumstances, because as soon as you start to get into certain elements, whether you're changing the domain or not, or the URLs or not, you are flirting with turbulence.
Yeah, and I believe in the article they cited that there were folder changes, which means they changed the URLs. So in the examples they cited, they're right. There is no way to avoid that because they messed with the URLs. But the way you avoid it, largely, if you want any chance of avoiding it, you got to be strict about your URLs and not change them.
I would say going from platform to platform, though, is definitely going to have an impact. So if you're going from like Shopify, even if you keep the same URLs and you're going to WordPress or just straight HTML, you're definitely going to see some effects from that.
Well, and it also depends on the ratio of your content to the overall size of your boilerplate. So if you're moving something like the Backlinko site, which is 45 skyscraper articles, then the theme isn't going to matter that much because he has so much relevant content on page. The theme change is a 10% difference. And so there's that ratio of content to boilerplate that matters. Let's see. Google also went on to say very few robots.txt files are over 500 kilobytes, but that's kind of a silly thing to brag on, I guess, because robots.txt files have a limit on how many URLs you can have in them. So if you say you can't have more than 10,000 URLs in a robots.txt file, then yeah, there's going to be a natural limit on file size that's arbitrary, and that's how that works. So that's a weird one. I don't even know why they're making that, but I mean, why don't they just say that there's a 10,000 URL limit in robots.txt and you need to use a robot.txt index of sub files, Oh, well.
On a related note, I rarely eat 7 meals a day. So, it's like, okay, it's a weird little thing to put out there, but it's
actually, I think I think my caffeine hasn't set in because I get blurry on the sitemap rules and the roadmap and the robots.txt rules. I wonder if I'm not blurring those two together. Is it sitemaps? It's sitemaps that have the 10,000 limit.
Oh, I've got this thing called Google. I'm going to test it out.
Yeah. So yeah, I think I'm mistaken. I'm correcting myself. The robots.txt might not have a limit.
Let's see. Nope. Wait.
According to Google developers, sitemap has a limit of 50,000 URLs.
Oh, they upped it. Cool.
Yeah. 500 kilobytes.
Oh, yeah, it says Google can process 500 kilobytes. So Google imposes a rule on the robots.txt file. Interesting. All right. So keep in mind that there's only so much you can deny. All right. Let's see what else we got here. Google says to stay away from low quality blurbs. So here's the problem, Google. Quality is subjective. So remember the rhinoplasty Plano site that Google punished? Because they called it pure spam. So they gave it a manual action, pure spam. But to us SEOs, that was the most educational content ever published in a blog for our industry. So quality is subjective. One audience thinks it's pure spam. The other audience thinks it's the greatest SEO blog post ever crafted. So what's low quality?
Not, yeah, it's a hard one to define.
And he's put it in the context of an e-commerce category page. So what on an e-commerce category page would even be deemed suspect? Like a category description text, their policies, the actual product tokens, the other categories, the supplemental upselling widgets. And that's pretty much it on a category page, right?
Yeah.
So it makes me wonder what they're talking about. And they're like blurbs of text, over and over again on all your category pages. That blurb, it's called the category name. And maybe it's the summary text or the policies or whatnot for that category of goods. Yeah, it's weird. Generally, I don't see things on category pages that are easy to cut away. So maybe he's talking about weird extreme cases where people are talking about their kids' little league game in the socks category. I don't know what it would be.
Yeah, it's hard when they don't give good specific examples.
Yeah, so here somebody says removing fluff category descriptions. But, category descriptions, like if you got into medical products, category descriptions are very useful. I would not describe category descriptions as fluff. When you get into like art supplies, it's good to know what certain types of art supplies are good for and bad for. And so the category of acrylic paints versus oil paints versus other medium, those descriptions are useful. And so, yeah, I kind of disagree with hating on category descriptions, even though they're kind of rubber stamped from page 1 of a category to page 2. Like, you could engineer it that category descriptions only appear on page 1, but
Right.
not on 2+. But I mean, it's still useful content, even if they didn't do that web development. So I kind of disagree with where they're coming from on this, and I'd really take it with a grain of salt before I delete all that content, because people may really need that. So yeah, I'm having a hard time agreeing with Google today. Let's see, was there anything else? Nope. But I did see that Terry Samuels hopped on. Hey, Terry, what do people know about, what do people need to know about spring training this year? How much time do they have to get the VIP? You with us, Terry? Oh, I can't hear him. Think he's away from,
Well, he has to make himself camera ready.
Well, while we wait for Terry, let me look at the comments here.
Well, the other interesting article, I don't know if you saw, Google sent out a thing the other day where they're talking about, Google sites not being ideal for SEO, which is true to a certain extent. But there was some interesting double talk in the article where they were talking specifically about G sites are used by a lot of spammers, and one of the things is they have these G stacks, and they're supposed to pass authority and trust to the target site. And the article says Google's there's no authority or trust that gets transferred from one site to another through links. And then John Mueller explained, I don't think we have a trust factor that can look and say, oh, trust is at a 9 out of 12 or whatever number you have. There are no metrics specifically for that. Okay, so I'm curious to see how the white hat community responds to that set of comments, because their take on EEAT is that Google measures all of that, and they're so smart, they've got it dialed in, and they know low trust from high trust. And he's like, we have no metrics for that.
Yeah, but Cope can take you to a lot of destinations.
It can. So I'm interested, I'm keeping that little article in my back pocket for discussions on EAT that I see out there.
Don't give those guys any ideas, man. Come on. Let them think that.
I just like to send them into cognitive dissonance. I'm like, but Google said there's EAT and Google said there's not.
That's fine. Let them go down that fucking path.
I'm good with it.
All right, so I think we have Terry now. Terry, what is the likelihood that SEO Spring Training is going to sell out? And how much time do people have for the VIP?
The pre-sale. Hi guys, by the way. Thanks for letting me put a shirt on. So it's just better that way. Anyways, yeah, so the pre-sale tickets ended last night. We're actually 50% sold out of the VIP and 75% sold out of the tech. Yes, it will sell out. We have no inclination that it won't. So, and we're doing a lot of different stuff this year. So it's not just going to be sitting in a room for 8 or 9 hours for 3 days. So we're going to mix it up a little. But yeah, it should be awesome.
Cool.
Very cool. Yeah, we should, closer to the event, we should do an episode where you get 4 or 5 of your biggest names to come on the show and share their first 3 slides and talk about them.
Interesting. Yeah, that'd be cool. So for sure. I'd have to figure out who'd be the, top of the heap though.
We all know everyone does their slides like the day before, so that might not work.
Exactly.
You'll find 3 people that have slides.
Like, what are you gonna
Exactly.
talk about? I'm like, dude, it's freaking September. I don't know.
Yeah, and that's the whole thing. By now in April, a lot of stuff's going to change in this industry, I believe. So,
Yeah.
but,
Yeah, I'm gonna take a break for part of 2024 so that I can do more testing and get new content to talk about. Because I'm running low on things I haven't talked about endlessly. So I need to do more research.
exactly. Yep. And I think that's everybody's going to be in that game. So, especially like JP and the security crap, that thing's changing freaking daily. So,
Yeah.
especially with AI. So,
Awesome. So where can people go learn more?
SEO Spring Training.com. Everything's updated. We're working on the speaker pages now. But we have most of the speakers chosen. I'm still waiting for a few more spots. But yeah, it's gonna be pretty freaking incredible. So trying to bring people over here that haven't done much in the US to kind of introduce some of the Europe stuff over here.
Yeah, that would be amazing.
That means all the SEOs in metric. I can't come.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
but no, it's going to be a lot of
kilograms
fun.
of text.
So the VIP event, if we can pull it off, is going to be incredible. But we won't know that until November. So, but it should be awesome.
Awesome. Thank you for the update.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Looking at some of the questions, one is, how does Cora deal with SGE? And we don't really interface with it currently. We parse out the organic search results, and you kind of have to go down a different path in order to engage with the AI stuff. So right now, Cora does not measure anything out of the SGE currently. So that will probably need to change as market share shifts in that direction. So it's on my roadmap to look into the engineering of that, and potentially what new possible dimensions of factors come into play. So that'll be interesting. But yeah, that's all preliminary stuff. Nothing's built. And yeah, its impact, I'm not even sure how to describe what might be different at this point.
And it's interesting because even in the AI field, we were talking, I don't know, 4 months back, ChatGPT was exploding to the moon. Pretty soon everybody's dog was going to be using ChatGPT. And then you see now that we've reached an inflection point where the user base is dropping, but that doesn't mean the AI use is dropping. It means it's, shifting. So we have no idea how SGE is going to affect the SERPs, how it's going to evolve over time, or if it's going to remain.
Well, what I've been finding is that like ChatGPT itself is a productivity tool is still really cool. Like my kids still really like it. I still use it just about every day. But the thing I've really grown, tired of is the search executive's implementation of putting AI in ad-driven web search. And it's like, it still strikes me that it's a football bat. It's this weird invention that isn't quite useful. And I find it hard to engage and hard to get good work out of it. And so I go back, why is the ChatGPT implementation so much more productive? And so there's a disconnect between what they're trying to cram down our throat in search versus what ChatGPT is and why it's so productive to use. And they need to bridge that gap. What do you think?
Yeah, it's a different thing because I'm watching to see all the different tools develop, the technologies develop. People are talking about, oh, have you used Palm or Llama or all of these different models that are out there, and how much better one is than the other for these types of tasks. It is a very, very different world that we're living in. And so predicting, before if I was the developer of Quora, which thankfully I am not, but if I were, before I would jump onto sort of interacting with an AI, I'd want to see that AI stayed, that it was something that was going to be a permanent fixture, and you just didn't code a whole bunch of stuff that 6 months from now would be, useless.
Oh, well, you never know. So
Yes.
yeah, all AI features might be silly, a year from now. But I don't blame people for trying. I mean, that's how progress happens. You got to try new things.
Terry said it's the difference between getting an answer to your query and getting a list of possible places that might have your answer.
Yeah, that's true. And the thing that I really wanted out of a web aware AI is the ability to ask about real time or near real time things. I want to get an AI drafted answer based on a page of search results. For the query SEO software, write a brief summary of the programs and their pricing.
Mm-hmm.
And to pull it from the search results, it should match what's in the search results. So, why can't we have that? Or why can't I query a live site? Why can't I say, rewrite, my about page in German? Why can't I do that yet? And I know there are plugins that could let you do it, and then they turned them off because it ended up being an open proxy, and that had a security consequence. And it's interesting that the things that we want, they're still gatekeeping hard. And so they don't want to let us access, AI in the current, state of the web. And I think whoever ungatekeeps that first is probably going to get an awful lot of market share. JP, what are some of the security concerns with letting AI be treated as, I guess, an open proxy?
I think there's different applications. One, like IBM Watson is a really, really good product right now, especially in the cyberspace, where it can actually analyze packets way better than anyone doing it manually. So I look at it more as it can help you speed up a process and help analyze things a lot quicker. When AI first came out, I was kind of like, man, I don't know about this. This is pretty scary, but like anything, there's always going to be bad actors. But I think it was pretty recently, they just came out with their crawl bot, didn't they? GPT bot, isn't it pretty new? Probably last couple months.
Yeah, I'd have to go and get updated on it. I know they had plugins that could let you query a live site, and then they quickly turned them off shortly after releasing them, because I was able to use those bots to be able to proxy Google results and get the feature I wanted, which was, write some content based on search results. And then they shut it down because it was against the Google terms of service. And
it's hard to judge because there's tools out there that you can take people's content and paraphrase it, and it reads pretty accurate across Copyscape. So unfortunately, there's just always going to be people out there that are going to take stuff. And now that ChatGPT actually does some live crawls now, it's getting a little bit more scary, but it's going to be more on the security side of what you do to your site to disallow those types of bots and people from crawling your site. So yeah, there's things that you can take into account to block those, but you're gonna have to hire someone like us to go out and do that for you.
Well,
Unless you can do it yourself, but
and I halfway think that's a mistake. If you're a business and people are asking questions of your products and services, I think you would want to be in a place where ChatGPT could talk about you accurately and favorably.
sure.
And if you block that, you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot in a forward thinking plan. And some people are already there today. Like they've blocked everything except Googlebot on their servers. And so they block Common Crawl, and now ChatGPT can't talk about their company, can't talk about their products. And so if you're blocking all bots except Googlebot, you might have already shot yourself in the foot.
Yeah, so I mean, it's kind of one of those, use at your own discretion. I mean, it's pretty much open web, open internet anyways. So if people want to look at my site and crawl, I mean, whatever, at the end of the day, it's kind of being able to see what you can detect if people are actually copying your stuff, which is, can't be difficult.
The technology way I view it is it's an indirect impression. So I can go to your website and see it with my own eyes and formulate an opinion, or I can ask ChatGPT to look at your website and tell me the information so I can formulate an opinion. It's just an indirect impression. There's an intermediary.
But how many people in the public do you think are actually using ChatGPT to actually find information?
Well, you
just
can't.
The general public.
You can't right now because they're gatekeeping the ability of ChatGPT to engage search results or to go direct to arbitrary websites. If I could say summarize this list of 7 URLs, that would be amazing, but they still don't want to let us do that.
Yeah,
and
even Bard, I think, is still pretty limited on what they're doing and allowing as well. So
yeah, so there are these search execs that are saying no, not for you, and they're just keeping us out for no reason, I guess, other than their legal fears or whatever is driving that gatekeeping. No, you can't have AI until we make it safe for you. It's that whole safety argument, and when it's safe enough, we'll let you use the power.
Well, most people think that, you just block a bot and you're blocking the ability for people to see certain things. But at the end of the day, if people really wanted to find it, it's not hard.
Yeah. And you can do custom development to get around the gatekeeping, but honestly, that shouldn't be required.
No.
We had the ability to solve these capability challenges 10 years ago. So the only reason they're blocking it is because they want to block it.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this. As a search engine, wouldn't you be hesitant about wanting, giving people a technology where they could go and feed in a list of URLs and have, because it's basically taking people off the platform?
Specifically as Google, I would be scared shitless. As ChatGPT and Bing, I would be racing to that as fast as I effing could. One is pure market share, and the other is, losing that market share. And so that's what that is. The features everybody wants are going to drive where the crowd goes. And if everybody's just going to deny, then what they've built is a failing football bat.
Well, even Quora has their own now too. I forget what it's called. It's called I don't know. Actually, they just came out with the phone app for Quora. But it does a pretty good job at summarizing questions and answers.
And he means Quora, the question answer website, not Quora.
Not Quora. Sorry.
just calling that out there.
Clarifying. Well, the other thing, could it be cost savings? Because, right now, ChatGPT is expensive to operate. And that's with me saying, hey, ChatGPT, do this. if I say go here, process this stuff and do, there's an exponential cost component in that, would there not be?
Yeah, but that's a Google problem. That's not a Bing problem. So Bing doesn't have the scalability issue that Google has. So very different context. But yeah, Google would definitely have a problem at scale. And on an individual level, like, using your own OpenAI API credits, it's hard for me to spend $1 on OpenAI. So I've been able to do, like, raise the ranking of this page, 25 positions in 3 minutes with 22 cents of OpenAI credit. Like, that's a reality if you know how to do it. But that cost, it scares me on the side that it diminishes the value of SEO services, like when the world figures out how to do all that wizardry. But that's something that we all have to keep an eye on, is that shifting landscape of what's possible. And the cost on that side is remarkably low. But fortunately, like some weird number, like 80% of SEOs despise ChatGPT because they're all content writers. It's like that conference we went to where we made all the content writers leave the room in disgust.
I think there was one person in particular that
Yeah, nothing against content writers, but we talk about the realities of things like AI, and people just don't want to believe that it's a thing, and it's in the world now. There's no putting the genie back in the bottle. All right, let's go to another question. Have you tested the efficiency? I think they might have meant the efficacy of bulk optimization tools like WordLift and Inlinks recently, to see if it's being indexed better by the robots. Well, I think entities work. And here's the thing about entities is you can actually see them coded in Google. Like, they are physically coded in the source code of Google search, and Google will even refer to them as entities, and they'll even use the Freebase and Wikidata entity IDs in their data in the HTML of the search results. And you can actually do entity queries. So you can go to Google and search for types of tools. You can see that tools is an entity, and you can redo your search, or you can see that like hammers is an entity, and you can redo your search for types of hammers, and then it'll give you entity cards for types of hammers. And you can actually explore Google's knowledge graph diagnostically with search queries. And then when you inspect those entity cards and look at the attributes in the HTML, you'll see the entity IDs. You'll see Google calling them entities. So we know, and there are even specialized searches where you can give Google an entity ID and Google will tell you what the entity is. And so there's all these different engineering layers where we see entities are physically coded into the Google ecosystem. And so I think entity tools are a good idea. And the reason why entities are important is you'll have some people that'll spam apple pie on a page a whole lot of times. Apple pie, apple pie, apple pie, apple pie, apple pie. And Google is trying to differentiate people who say apple pie a lot from people who are talking about apple pie. And as Lee says, people who are talking about apple pie will talk about cinnamon, sugar, pie pans, oven mitts, temperature. And so those are the entities around apple pie, and Google is trying to quantify that page A is more about apple pie than page B. And so this is how that word math plays out, and it is very powerful for ranking. So if you are not on the entity train, you need to shift your thinking and get on the entity train. What do you think, Lee?
Yeah, I agree. And in general, I don't test, full auto tools versus not full auto tools. What I would tend to do in those sort of situations is try a tool or a technique with a series of pages and see whether they went up, down, or sideways. That would be the way that I would approach that. But with those specific tools, no, I haven't tested them specifically to see whether they're a good tool, a bad tool, whether they have any impact on what I'm doing.
I do like InLink's entity database. Like they do a pretty good job. All right, another question. Where can we take the class? I believe that's about tested SEO training. How can people reach you?
Go to testedseotraining.com, look at it, and then reach me on Skype. My Skype ID is testitall. That's on the page as well. So
excellent. Let's see. Speaking on OpenAI, have you guys noticed that the outputs are getting worse because it's scraping its own unedited content and putting it back into their large language model? There's been a noticeable downtick. I mean, that's plausible, but I haven't seen it myself, but I tend to change topics and functions and purposes quite a lot. So I haven't been running the same kinds of queries over and over and over and over again.
yeah.
So I find that when I change what I'm doing, like I work on a programming problem, then I work on a networking issue, then I do a piece of content, then I experiment with the feature, then I do a different programming. I don't see that problem in that type of usage, but I could see if you're running the same kind of query a lot, that, yeah, there could be some sort of feedback loop behavior, especially if it's learning on the fly. Maybe making a new chat session could like flush out some of that.
Yeah, no, I've too have not seen the differences. I've seen that a lot of people, a lot of services are reporting that there are differences, and they have some examples to make their case. It looks to me like certainly OpenAI is making some changes and tweaks to their models over time. As far as the model feeding, eating other AI output, that's a known issue with models, and I'm not sure that that's the case here. I'm not even sure we have no information about what OpenAI is trained on originally or how it's updating its training sets now. So that to me would be speculative, but it is a known problem. If you feed AI content back into an AI model, the performance tends to get worse over time because all of the training data tends to make the model output tend towards, whatever the central, most prominent relationships, word relationships tend to be the ones that get output, and all the nuanced stuff disappears over time. So it does get worse.
So Stefan says the AI approach is kind of crappy anyway, and I don't know that it's a great way to get information. And I think that's true. You can't trust that the information is true because AI hallucinates. And I've seen even predating the Bard and ChatGPT, even predating that, where Google was doing title rewrites with BERT. Even then, they had these problems because occasionally even Bert would rewrite a web page title to claim that a law firm offers free legal services.
Mhm.
And it's hilarious seeing that Google rewrites your title and says that your law firm works for free. And you have no recourse on that. And I'd imagine Google probably regretted doing that, but even still, that stuff happens with AI. And I know that when I queried ChatGPT about my own business, it summarized my business as offering free SEO tools. And if you know me, I don't offer free SEO software. So it hallucinated because there's a very large and popular, corpus of free online SEO tools. And so it's predicting, and it predicted, oh, I'm in SEO tools, and free SEO tools are very common and popular. So we'll talk about Ted's free SEO tools. And so that's, kind of how it hallucinates. And you gotta check your answers. There was a recent article I read where a teacher let somebody cheat with ChatGPT to take the final exam. And I think it was like a computer science class, something that it should have been a ringer. And it only got like a C minus. And so even though it's acing a lot of different types of testing standards, when a teacher openly let one student cheat with it as a test, it barely passed. So keep in mind that the world is adapting to a world with ChatGPT in it, and I bet that teacher is looking at what questions is ChatGPT bad at solving, and I bet you'll find those on all your exams going forward. What do you think about it?
Yeah, I think that's true, because the performance of any AI model is going to depend on the corpus that it was trained on, and not all corpuses are equal. So it might perform really, really well on SEO and really horribly on home repairs. It might perform, great on, personal injury law type of questions and horrible on custody law type of questions, just because, that's the nature of the thing. So you can't presume that because it does great at this, it does great at it everywhere and in all circumstances. It's why we always say you have to check the output, you have to check the reliability of it and the factual accuracy of it. And the same thing is true, I found, with coding. I've had to teach ChatGPT a couple of times because it didn't have a solution for the particular problem I was trying to get it to solve, or the solution was it was a recurrent loop that it took minutes to solve when it should have taken less than 2 seconds. And so I gave it the code. I said, write the code with this kind of solution in it. It goes, oh, and it did it, and then it runs quickly. But so it's. I also saw an article this morning on this particular topic. Can large language models reason? And there's some evidence that they can, and some evidence that they can't. So it's right now they're trying to figure out what's a good way of even testing whether that's a capability. Whether it's mimicry or reasoning, because a lot of people are using large language models like they reason. And right now, that's not necessarily the case. So,
yep. One example from Digital Unfiltered. I wanted a image of a road that had multiple forks in the road.
mm-hmm.
And it did not have a figurative understanding. It gave me a literal interpretation where it made a road and it stuck lots of forks in it. And it even included a spoon and a spatula for good measure. And
I had the same thing. I had an orange that was going to be squeezed in the jaws of a vice, and it gave me an orange with a big mouth, its jaws doing some things. And I'm like, Okay, that didn't turn out the way that I wanted, but it was good. I still used it like you did. I said it's a good example of bad AI.
Yeah. When AI fails hard, it becomes the image on my slide. All right. So somebody asked, if Google is rewriting title, is it best to change your SERP to match what Google is doing? No, actually, about 55 to 60% of the time, the title that Google is showing most frequently will get you in a worse ranking position. And I know Google has said that their split testing does not impact rankings, but the measurement data says otherwise. If you have Quora, you can run the volatility tool and see ranking differences in title rewrites. And it is very common that Google, if you let Google decide, Google will put you in a worse position. So don't let Google decide, take control.
Yeah, there's a common misconception in that I'll talk about for a second, because I think if people understand this, they'll have a better time understanding how to react to Google. When Google tests, a lot of people think, oh, Google's testing my page. Google's not actually testing your page. They're testing their algorithm, some feature of their algorithm, like a title rewrite, and your page happens to be one of the test candidates in their pool of pages. So they're not trying to optimize your page. They're trying to optimize their title rewrite algorithm. And sometimes when they do the title rewrites, they're going to do it well. And sometimes they're going to do it horribly. And in all cases, it's not about you. It's about them trying to figure out the best way for them to present the results for themselves. So when you see a test going on your page, it's not like Google's trying to figure your page out. They're trying to figure their algorithm out, and you're a guinea pig. So saying, I'm a guinea pig, maybe I should, write it like the test wrote it. Well, you don't know what the answer is yet. So,
Yeah. And sometimes Google will split test 2 titles. Sometimes they'll test 3, 4, 5 titles. And which one are you picking then? Google rewrote them all.
mhm.
And so, yeah, you have to know which one ranks best, and you have to understand why it's ignoring your title as written. And odds are you have a relevancy problem in your title. Most commonly, you've done so much CRO in your title and meta description that Google feels it doesn't represent what the content is, and then it ignores them. So you have to go back to having relevant titles and meta descriptions, and then Google will work with them. Let's see. I'm trying to figure out, I skipped a few questions and I don't want to miss good ones. Let's see. Geoff says, I am very aware John Mueller is most definitely wrong, but just want to double check for myself. I love the idea that you will double check for yourself, because there is nothing you can be told or read about or see a YouTube video that is more believable than the things you can prove for yourself. So it is actually the best proof you can acquire is the things you can prove for yourself. Because everybody is suspect. All information is suspect until you can prove it works for you. And that is the best level of evidence. Let's see.
Yeah, there's a comment in chat here. Honey said, I've predicted that the pros of large language models will be to help us become better communicators. We'll learn to ask better questions, and we'll learn to fact check the answers. We will become better at critical thinking. So.
All right. For someone learning more on SEO, what easy wins, where was it? Had to let someone, what easy wins would you recommend for getting those 0 to 1 victories with ranking factors to break through a traffic plateau. Well, I think the fundamental
Question.
the fundamental thing you want is measurements on how your page is different than the higher ranking pages. I think when you see your list of differences, that you can formulate a strategy that is going to be more successful for you. Like I could give you the answer where I list off the 7 hottest zones of a page. But you can find that on 87,000 blogs. And if that was going to do it, it would have worked by now. So I think what you really need is measurement data on how your page is different. And you need to work on eliminating those differences. That's where I would start. What about you, Lee?
TopSEOFactors.com. I would start there. I would look and say, and take a core report and, put those two things together and say, if I've got a top SEO factor, one of the top 100, 200, whatever that's got a 0, get rid of the damn 0. That's where I would start.
Excellent. Can
It's
we
already done the hard work for you. Just go take it. It's free.
Can we hear more about Ted's free SEO tools? You just did, so topseofactors.com. It's the only free software I have out there, and there are SEOs that send me thank you notes every day for that, saying how they use it in their sales process and all kinds of things. So you can do very useful work with that free resource.
Yeah.
Let's see if we did that one. Should I use exact match anchor in my nav for location pages or a variation and exact match in content? What do you think about exact match internally, Lee?
I love it in content. I love it in content. I also love variations in content. I don't think there is one magic answer for that particular problem. I mean, a lot of people are afraid of exact match, but like you've talked about, you made a whole damn career out of exact match footer links, moving power around a site and among sites. You take a look at something like CNN. If you look at their footer, which is a scrollable thing, it's like it's got some linear feet behind it. They have exact match going to millions and millions of pages. So there's not a threshold there that's problematic. I personally like to vary up the anchor text in there. I'm not afraid of using exact match frequently, though.
Yeah, and a lot of people, they wonder about variations in exact match, and technically the exact match is always one of the variations. So keep that in mind. Let's see, you can avoid GPT hallucinations by priming it with the consensus data prior to prompting. Yeah, but if you're looking for the answer, you can't start with the answer. And so that's chicken and the egg problem. Are you guys still using random alpha for tests? Yes, strangely enough, random alpha and lorem ipsum and all that stuff still works even after all the spam updates and everything. Rhinoplasty Plano style websites are still ranking #1 in Google for different cities. So that has not been fixed. It all still works exactly the same as it ever did. And technically, white text on a white background still works. So that's another test you can run. And that one was first reported 20 years ago. And so if you're saying this update is the one where Google fixes all of it and we need to worry, what evidence are you using that this is the one? Because they haven't done it in 20 years. Why would this one be the one? All right. Is Cora Lite more powerful than Pop? Well, Cora Lite is kind of for article writers. It measures 524 factors that would occur within main content. Pop is using a few dozen factors. It's considered a quick win tool by design. So you would use Pop to get quick, easy bumps up in ranking. But then generally it runs out of steam. It may not get you to the finish line of number one, even though in general it'll give you a quick bump up. And a lot of SEO tools are quick win tools. When it comes to, well, how do I get across that finish line when a quick win tool doesn't get me to the number one spot? And in those cases, you need a tool like the full version of Cora, which is capable of measuring over 100,000 SEO factors and will tell you about all of your differences and your lack of diversity, and will tell you what you need beyond what the quick win tools will even look at. So just note that quick win tools are great tools. They're very affordable. They give you some easy improvements quickly. But when you get into the harder keywords, that you kind of need to understand how you're different to a better degree. What do you think, Lee?
Yeah, it's always hard to compare tools. For me, I don't use Cora Lite. I don't use Pop or Surf or any of those. I just straight Cora because it's what gives me everything that I need. So I don't get around into the quick win tools because I can pull out the quick win factors out of Cora just as easily as I can out of something else. So I'm not a good data point for that sort of question.
Yeah, and I think the other main consideration you really want to probably focus a lot of attention on is the workflow of your business. So I know that tools like Pop, what they're really selling you is, integrated workflow. So if you are really dependent on that, then that should probably be part of your decision making.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So let's see. We still use random alpha for controlled tests. That's honey. And random alpha, I love it. If I have optimized my page for primary keyword, should I take a second pass for a secondary keyword? Currently ranking 5 for second best keyword. Technically, this is a very complicated and nuanced question, because if they're sufficiently close, then yes, and if they're different, then no. And how far is too far is hard to determine. And so, for example, if you rank for hummingbird feeders, it is very easy to rank that same page for glass hummingbird feeders and blue hummingbird feeders. But it is very hard to rank that hummingbird feeder page for bird gift ideas, because bird gift ideas is too topically distant for that page. You would need a separate page for bird gift idea. So it becomes nuanced. And what I like to do is I like to do diagnostic queries in Google where I'll put in hummingbird feeders and blue hummingbird feeders and kind of see, am I getting largely the same pages? Do I see the terms back and forth on both? Are they kind of close enough? And you can kind of get, maybe a first order impression as to whether or not they're topically close or distant. But again, there's an art form to it. What do you think, Lee?
Yeah, it's a challenging problem, because ultimately what you're trying to divine is whether or not Google thinks those two things, can both rank extremely well for, and if you're in the example, if I'm number 1 for this, number 5 for that, they're already ranking pretty well. So probably, but If you were ranking number 1 for something and number 25 for something else, then you have to wonder how closely topically they are. And there are a lot of theories about how to determine that. But to my knowledge, there hasn't been anybody come out with a methodology that's backed by data. So, and I've seen a lot of the methodology. Hell, I've tried to develop some of those methodologies, still have some of those things, sort of in the lab cooking to see if we can get, close enough that it's workable, usable, those kind of things. But it's not an easy problem because we cannot see inside of Google. The only thing we can see are the SERP results. So, Ted's method is as good as any right now. Compare the blue hummingbird feeders with hummingbird feeders and see if largely you come back with the same pages. And there are some, you could use Ahrefs or something like that to look at those two and see what comes back. Is there an overlap in the keyword set that those pages rank for, those kind of things, and use that to, guide you. But if your first, keyword is hummingbird feeders and your second keyword is, unique gift, bird gift ideas or something like that, then yeah, you're gonna de-optimize one as you try to optimize the other.
Yeah, if I could add something, there's some pretty cool tools that will actually help you analyze some of the text and some of the intent, some of the semantics. Two that I use, one is called Eden AI, another one is called NLP Cloud, and it helps you extract some of that intent. So that may help you. It's not always going to be for every scenario, but that's helped me. So that may be something to look into.
Perfect.
Yeah. Awesome. All right, we'll do one more and then we'll call it a show. Let's see. What is the threshold to build a new page for a keyword rather than boosting the current page for more keywords? Well, the common problem, and I think you're touching on the common problem. So the common problem I see is like, I often see it in law firms. So they will see that it's easiest to rank the homepage. Their homepage tends to be the most important for conversion because of the way they designed it, not for any other reason. And so then they start wanting to put, family law, injury law, DUI lawyer, and all of these things on their homepage. And they work at it really hard, and they go through 15 SEOs trying to make one page rank for 30 different keywords on the homepage. And they keep firing all their SEOs because they managed to get the homepage to mid-page 2 for a lot of the keyword set. And so what ends up happening when they get a new SEO is the new SEO looks at this homepage, says, okay, there's 30 keywords here. One of them is on page 2, it's or on page 3, it's 25. So I'm going to fix up the one that's at 25, and they aggressively tune the page for it, and it shoots up. It goes on to page 1. But then 27 of the other important keywords on that page all shoot to page 3, and now they're in trouble. Because by stacking all those different keywords on that one page, what you've actually done is built a very fragile house of cards. And anytime you go for the gold on any one, you topple the whole kingdom. And so what you actually need to do when you're in that painful, fragile house of cards is you need to have a difficult conversation with the business where you explain that the only way you can get your maximum amount of number 1 rankings is to start taking keywords out of that fragile situation, giving them a dedicated page, and aggressively tuning for those opportunities. When you start doing 1 keyword per page SEO, you're kind of on the fast track to getting your maximum amount of page 1 rankings. And so it's kind of, lazy web development, lazy SEO to try to do everything all on one page. What do you think, Lee?
Yeah, I agree with all that. I think, one of the little tricks that I might utilize is use your Search Console data. If you're sitting there and looking at a page and, you've got it optimized well for whatever your primary keyword is, if you're getting impressions and they're in a reasonable position for a second keyword, then, you might use that as a basis for additional optimizations. But if you're, ranking for hummingbird feeders and you're not really getting the glass hummingbird feeder thing on there despite your attempts to throw that onto a page, that's Google telling you something ain't working. So if that's not working, throw it on a different page and see if when you throw it on a different page, if you create a glass hummingbird feeder page, see if it starts to cannibalize the other one, see if they start to fight for that term or whether it's ranking well on its own. I mean, that's the way that I would do it. I would let Google tell me.
Excellent. So with that, we will call it a show. I want to thank everyone. I think next week we tentatively have a guest scheduled. We're going to have Chris Palmer come on the show. He's kind of the new addition to the SEO testing community. So I want to talk about how testing has impacted his SEO game, how he does his testing, what are some of his discoveries, what's in his future for it. So we're going to talk about some testing next week. You like the topic, Lee?
I love the topic. And for those that don't know Chris, make sure you have plenty of caffeine before the show because he is high energy and he talks fast. So you're going to have to move like this to keep up with the flow of stuff coming out of him.
Yep. And so that's on the plan for next week. So thank you, everyone.
Cool.